We're going to start with the least infamous outlaws and work our way to the most notorious Wild West outlaws of all time. 6. George Parrott. George Parrott, also known as Big Nose George, was a cattle rustler, train robber, and horse thief who operated in the American West during the 1870s. He became notorious after participating in an attempted train robbery in Wyoming and for his role in the murders of two lawmen, Deputy Sheriff Robert Widowfield and Union Pacific Detective Henry Vincent. Thanks to these murders, a bounty of $20,000 was placed on George, and after bragging about the murders in a Montana bar, Big Nose George was arrested. While awaiting his murder trial in jail, he tried to bash the jailer's head in with a sawed-off shackle, but was stopped by the jailer's wife. News eventually broke about his attempted escape, which led an enraged mob to storm the jail. They dragged him out of the jail and lynched him on March 22, 1881. What happened afterward is even stranger than his crimes. George's skin was fashioned into a pair of shoes, and his skull was used as an ashtray, all of which is able to be viewed in a museum. 5. James Brown Miller. Known as Killer Miller or Deacon Jim, James Brown Miller was one of the deadliest professional gunmen in the Old West. Unlike many famous outlaws who died in dramatic shootouts, Miller was often accused of carrying out contract killings for money. He cultivated a religious image, frequently attended church, and wore a steel breastplate under his coat to survive gunfights. Historians estimate he may have been responsible for dozens of murders, though the exact number remains disputed. His last act would occur in Oklahoma in 1909 when he was hired by saloon owners to murder U.S. Deputy Marshal Gus Bobbitt. After ambushing the deputy and shooting him with a shotgun, Gus Bobbitt's wife would find her husband laying on the ground before, with his last words, uttering the name James Miller. Thanks to this information, James Brown Miller was arrested and sent to jail. However, before a trial could take place, a mob broke into the jail and dragged Miller and several accomplices into the street. He died by lynching, ending one of the most violent crime sprees of the Wild West. 4. John Wesley Hardin. John Wesley Hardin was one of the most notorious gunfighters in American history and claimed to have killed more than 40 men. Raised in Texas during a violent era, he became a fugitive while still a teenager and spent years evading law enforcement. Stories surrounding Hardin became legendary, including his claim that he once killed a man for snoring too loudly in a hotel room. After a multi-year manhunt across many states, he was eventually captured in Alabama, 1877, and sentenced to prison back in Texas for a sentence of 25 years. After only 15 years, he was released for good behavior, and he surprisingly studied law and briefly worked as an attorney. His attempt at a respectable life ended in 1895 in El Paso, Texas. While playing dice in a saloon, Hardin was shot in the back of the head by John Selman during a personal feud. Hardin died instantly, bringing an end to one of the Wild West's most feared reputations. 3. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid were leaders of the infamous Wild Bunch, a gang responsible for bank robberies, train robberies, and thefts across the American West during the 1890s. Cassidy was known as a clever planner, while Sundance was regarded as one of the fastest gunmen of his era. Throughout their crime spree, they stole over $230,000, which is worth approximately $8 million in today's economy. After pressure from law enforcement intensified, the pair fled to South America, where they continued criminal activities in Argentina and Bolivia. Their deaths remain one of the greatest mysteries of the Wild West. The traditional account states that, in 1908, they were surrounded by Bolivian soldiers in the town of San Vicente after a robbery. According to reports, Sundance was wounded, and Cassidy later shot him before taking his own life to avoid capture. However, no definitive proof was ever found, leading to decades of speculation that one or both men may have survived and secretly returned to the United States. 2. Billy the Kid. Billy the Kid is perhaps the most legendary outlaw of the American frontier. Born Henry McCarty and later known by several aliases, he became famous during the Lincoln County War in New Mexico Territory. He was remarkably elusive, escaping from custody multiple times. First in 1875, at just 15 years old, He escaped by shimmying up the jailhouse chimney. One of his most famous moments came in 1881. After first being cornered and arrested by Sheriff Pat Garrett, he was sentenced to hang. However, Billy the Kid had other plans. He escaped from jail while awaiting execution, killing 2 deputies during the breakout. His ability to evade capture transformed him into a folk hero and outlaw legend. The escape did not buy him much time. Sheriff Pat Garrett tracked him to Fort Sumner, New Mexico. On the night of July 14, 1881, Billy unexpectedly entered a darkened room where Garrett was waiting. Garrett fired 2 shots, one of which struck Billy in the chest and killed him at just 21 years old. His early death helped turn him into one of the most enduring myths of the Wild West. 1. Jesse James. Jesse James was arguably the most famous outlaw in American history. A former Confederate guerrilla during the Civil War, he later formed the James Younger Gang with his brother Frank and several associates. The gang carried out numerous bank robberies, train robberies, and stagecoach holdups across the Midwest. One of the most dramatic moments of his criminal career was the disastrous Northfield bank raid in Minnesota in 1876, where townspeople fought back, several gang members were killed or captured, and the gang was nearly destroyed. After years of evading authorities, Jesse lived under aliases but remained America's most wanted outlaw with a bounty of $10,000. His death came not in a shootout but through betrayal. Because his gang had been dwindling down and more members were either getting arrested or defecting, Jesse James asked to move in with Charlie and Robert Ford, 2 people who he trusted most. This decision would unknowingly seal his fate. On April 3, 1882, while Jesse turned his back to straighten a picture on a wall, gang member Robert Ford seized the opportunity and shot him in the back of the head, hoping to collect a reward. The killing instantly became one of the most famous betrayals in American history.